3 things you can slip on.
Slippers, a shirt, and flip-flop. No, slippers. No.
Not everyone left Ellen's couch smiling. Some cracked jokes, others crossed a line on live TV. These are the moments that pierced the Be Kind bubble and made millions hit rewind. And the way a few guests pushed back might surprise you. It started with free stuff and a simple rule. Take one. Ellen had stocked a room with shirts, mugs, hats, the kind of swag that says, "I was here," long after the applause fades. The audience lined up in groups. Smiles, gratitude, easy TV. What they didn't know? The room had eyes. Hidden cameras watched every grab, every glance, every just one more. Most people followed the rule. One woman didn't. She scooped up extras, nudged a friend to do the same, and even flashed fake passes to squeeze out more. A tiny heist, happening in the happiest place on daytime TV. It wasn't criminal. It was worse for this room. It broke the vibe. Ellen's whole brand was generosity with boundaries. And that day, the boundaries got tested in high definition. When the footage rolled, the studio went silent in that specific way live audiences do when they're caught between laughing and wincing. Ellen didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. She let the tape run. The woman watched herself become that person in real time, grabbing, guiding, grinning. Suddenly, the giveaway felt like a sting. The jokes landed harder than usual. So did the lesson. Ellen's response was classic daytime discipline, light on scolding, heavy on the point. She offered grace to others who'd followed the rules. She offered a playful jail to the one who hadn't. It was silly, but it stung. The audience member tried to explain, then stalled, then shrank. The cameras kept rolling, the clip traveled. People debated whether it was petty or fair, but everyone agreed. Getting called out by the nation's Be Kind host is a special kind of spotlight. Why did it stick? Because it flipped the script. The host, known for surprises and hugs, showed she could also bring receipts. Kindness with consequences. A smile that says, "You knew better." And for a lot of viewers, it was the first hairline crack in that perfect daytime sheen. A hint that the show's warmth had a thermostat only Ellen controlled. But that was just a warm-up. Next, a celebrity chef steps in, the jokes get sharper, and a bowl of rice becomes a battlefield. The kitchen looked harmless. Bowls of rice, neat little stations, everyone smiling. Then Giada De Laurentiis started shaping arancini and the mood shifted. Ellen fumbled a handful, and Giada didn't miss. "That looks like dog food." Quick, casual, but sharp. The audience laughed. Ellen did too, the way you laugh when a joke nicks the skin. Nicole Kidman stepped in like a referee and somehow made it spicier. She rolled one perfect ball on her first try. Giada shot another quip, something about the woman who can't cook, nailing it, and the table turned. Ellen and Nicole began testing Giada's bread like it was a stress ball, tapping and biting with exaggerated concern. Suddenly, the expert wasn't untouchable. She was on the receiving end of 2 A-listers poking holes in the menu. That's why the clip lives on. It wasn't a meltdown, it was a tone change. A friendly segment that felt competitive. Giada kept needling, Ellen kept smiling with teeth, and Nicole delivered those priceless slow blinks that say everything without a word. Viewers love a reversal, and this one had it. The chef who can plate anything getting roasted over her own recipe. And it left a message. On Ellen's set, even a cooking bit can turn into a sparring match. Like gloves, real jabs. Which sets up the next moment perfectly, when the roasting goes official and Sean Hayes walks in ready to trade punches. Sean Hayes didn't stroll in, he sauntered, grinning like he'd brought ammo. The vibe flipped from cozy to comedy club in seconds. He teased Ellen about her transitions, the way she hops from one question to the next like she's skipping stones. The audience loved it. Ellen did too. Until she didn't. She fired back with the kind of smile that means, "Your turn," tossing a jab about Will and Grace getting cancelled. Hayes didn't flinch. He lobbed one right back about length and ratings. Then Ellen dropped the closer. The show only exists because she took the risk first. The room cracked. Not mean, just real. 2 pros, both quick on their feet, proving they can take a hit as well as they throw one. What made it addictive wasn't the insults, it was the balance. No victim, no villain, just controlled chaos. Hayes poked Ellen's weak spots. Interview rhythm, the occasional fumble. Ellen reminded him she pioneered the space he thrives in. It felt like sparring between equals, the kind that ends in a hug but leaves a mark. And it was a warning shot to anyone who thinks daytime TV is soft. You come sharp, Ellen comes sharper, which makes the next encounter even juicier. Wendy Williams walks in carrying shade and bacon. Wendy Williams came in like she owned the room, because that's her brand. Ellen brought up the shade Wendy had thrown at Kim and Kanye, and Wendy smiled like, and? Then came the needle. How do you live without bacon? On a set where the host is famously vegan, that's not a question, it's a dare. Ellen kept it calm, making the case for animals with the kind of steady tone that says, "We're not doing this today." But the air changed. You could feel the audience lean in, waiting to see who'd blink. Wendy didn't blink. A few years later, she played the look-alike game and nudged the running joke that Justin Bieber looks like Ellen. Low stakes, sure, but it tapped the one thing TV hosts guard like Fort Knox: image. Ellen smiled through it, the way pros do, yet you could see the calculation behind the eyes. Daytime is diplomacy. Wendy is a walking stress test. That's why the moment sticks. It wasn't a blow-up, it was friction. Two queens of talk circling each other, one poking, the other parrying, both refusing to give the other the reaction they wanted. The win wasn't in the joke, it was in the control. And speaking of control, the next guest flips the power dynamic completely. A global pop star, a mega hit on the speakers, and one tiny lyric that Ellen gets wrong on her own stage. The beat dropped and Ellen was loose. Tequila had been a running joke all day, so the energy was high. She belted a line from Justin Timberlake's monster hit like she'd lived in that chorus for months. Then she landed on the wrong lyric. Justin didn't scold. He paused, grinned, and gave that tiny head tilt stars use when they know they've got you. That's not the line. The audience roared. Ellen tried to rally the crowd, tossing out a playful defense. Her DJ betrayed her with a tap of a button. The real track blasted, crystal clear, and the misheard line stood there like a spotlight. It was harmless, but it stung. On her stage, with his song, the roles flipped. The host turned into the student. The pop star became the teacher who knows every comma of his own hook. Ellen laughed it off because that's the only move. But the moment lingered. Viewers love a tiny topple, especially when the person who's usually flawless fumbles. That's why the clip replayed. It's clean, quick, and brutally human. One missed word, a raised eyebrow, and a whole room leaning in to watch the correction land. No fight, no feud. Just a reminder that on Ellen's set, control can slip in a single beat. But playtime only works when the room stays warm. Next, a joke about a cat and masculine energy chills the air. And it does not age well. The laugh started, then stalled. Jennifer Lawrence was telling a goofy pet story, the kind of harmless tangent daytime TV eats up, about her cat having masculine energy. Then she dropped the nickname Chaz Bono. You could feel the room tilt. On a set where Ellen has long backed trans folks and chosen her words carefully, the joke didn't land. It thudded. Jennifer kept talking, doubling down with more cat and gender chatter, and the smiles on the couch went still. Ellen didn't scold. She did something sharper. She pivoted. Quick change of subject, warmer tone, the kind of redirect pros use when a bit turns ice cold. That's why the moment lingers. It wasn't a headline fight, it was a vibe shift. A star tried a punchline that felt off even then, and reads even rougher now. Viewers later replayed the clip as a case study in tone, edgy versus insensitive, intent versus impact. And Ellen's move, no lecture, just a clean exit, said everything without saying anything. Awkward, but survivable. The next hit wasn't a stumble, it was a precision check. A guest looked Ellen in the eye and said, "That's not the truth." Dakota Johnson sat relaxed, but her answers were surgical. Ellen tossed a light opener about missing Dakota's 30th. Dakota didn't flinch. "Actually, that's not the truth." Calm voice, direct eye contact. You could feel the room snap to attention. No joke, no jab, just a correction, clean and undeniable. Ellen tried to pivot, reaching for a reason, a laugh, anything to soften the edge. Dakota doubled down with receipts. She'd invited her. She even mentioned her favorite comedian, Tig Notaro, with a tiny smile that landed like a dart. It wasn't cruel, it was controlled. And that's what made it sting. The power flipped in a sentence. Host energy off, guest in charge. The internet did the rest. Clips looped, people freeze-framed expressions, fans cross-checked dates and spun theories about why Ellen wasn't there. The moment escaped the couch and became a meme, then a case study. How to set a boundary on national TV without raising your voice. Why it's stuck is simple. We're used to seeing stars get flustered by a host. Here, the guest stayed ice steady and the host blinked. A tiny truth check exposed a bigger tension, the gap between the show's breezy tone and the real-life logistics behind it. But that was a skirmish over an invite. The next clash cuts deeper. Values, identity, and a question that turned an interview into a fault line. It wasn't a punchline, it was a belief laid on the table. Caitlyn Jenner sat across from Ellen in 2015, newly public, scrutinized from every angle, and the conversation drifted to marriage equality. Jenner described a past traditional view, then said she supported it now. The air got still. Daytime chatter turned into a values check. Ellen didn't scold, she pressed. If the stance had changed, why did the language still sound hesitant? Why did the word itself, marriage, seem negotiable? It was a small semantic crack with a lot underneath it. Personal history, politics, and the weight of saying it all out loud on a set where the host's marriage isn't abstract. It's her life. The tension wasn't volume, it was friction. Two truths clashing at once. One person describing a long, messy evolution, the other living the outcome of that fight in real time. Smiles stayed on, but you could feel the room recalibrate. This wasn't banter. It was a line in the sand drawn softly, then underlined. What followed lived beyond the couch. Headlines called it awkward. Clips circulated. Jenner later emphasized she was fully supportive, framing earlier comments as part of a years-long progression that didn't compress neatly into a segment. Supporters heard sincerity, critics heard hedging. The debate wasn't just what was said, it was how it landed. That's why the moment endures. It showed the limit of daytime politeness. Jokes and games can paper over a lot, but not a fault line about identity and rights. Ellen's brand met real-world stakes, and the sheen thinned. Viewers didn't need a blow-up to feel it. They saw it in the pauses, the posture, the careful phrasing. Taken with everything else, the audience sting, the kitchen needling, the friendly roast that got sharp, the fact checks on air, this interview felt like the truest crack in the glass. Not cruel, not explosive, just unmistakable. And when you rewatch these clips after everything that came later, they read like breadcrumbs. Little signals that the be kind bubble was always more complicated than it looked. Which brings us to the bigger picture, the pattern, the fallout, and what these moments say about the show's legacy. In the end, these weren't just viral clips, they were pressure checks. A giveaway gone sideways, a chef's jab that drew blood, a friendly roast that got real, a pop icon's tiny correction that flipped the room, a pet story that chilled the air, a calm, that's not the truth, and a values clash that wouldn't smooth over. Put together, they sketched the outline of a show built on warmth and wit, and the moments when both met their limits. Live TV makes everything faster and sharper. Jokes hit harder, silences get louder. And when the person in charge has a brand built on sunshine, even a hairline crack reads like a headline. You can see Ellen's superpowers, speed, charm, control, working in real time. You can also see how guests who push back, even gently, change the temperature of the room and expose the edges of that control. Looking back, these scenes feel less like isolated hiccups and more like breadcrumbs, signals that the glossy daytime promise was always negotiating with real people, real egos, and real stakes. Some moments were playful, some were uncomfortable, and a few were impossible to forget. So, here's the question to take with you. Which of these felt like harmless TV, and which felt like something truer slipping through the smile?